Hello, good evening, and welcome to Iron Port here on Metropolitan Television. Iron Port is proudly brought to you by the Ghana Revenue Authority, GOEL PLC, Serene Insurance, Ghana Link Network Services, Meridian Port Services, and indeed the latest kid on the block, Phoenix Insurance. The show is proudly powered by the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority-GPHA. And our media partner on this journey of a lifetime is the Business and Financial Times, the BNFT. Now, if you want to have a grasp of all the transpired on the show tonight, make a date and grab the Thursday edition of the BNFT, and you'll be able to see all that happened here on the show. Indeed, we shall be getting interactive with you, and all you have to do is send us your messages and comments via our dedicated WhatsApp line, which is 0559019177. When the time is ripe, we shall share that with the rest of the world. And also, when I pick signals from the production team, we shall activate the phone lines for you to call in and contribute to the discussion. We are streaming live tonight on our social media pages on Facebook. We are live at Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority. Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority. Still on Facebook, we are live at Port of Tema. And on YouTube, we are streaming live at Iron Port. My name is Kennedy Mona. We're going for a quick break. When we return, we'll continue the show. Please stay with us.
Every now and again, GOEL makes good things happen. This time, GOEL has introduced Super XP Ron 95, a higher grade fuel loaded with additives and yet sold at the same price as normal fuel. GOEL Super XP Ron 95 enhances engine performance like never before. It maintains the engine by keeping it clean from carbon deposits. GOEL Super XP Ron 95 is designed to burn slowly and thus improves fuel economy, making you save money after several kilometers. GOEL Super XP Ron 95 gives you a smooth driving experience, that is, less vibrations. Fill up with GOEL Super XP Ron 95. Now there's no need to pay more for any higher grade fuel. GOEL has that sorted. GOEL, good energy.
Electricity, pay your taxes. Our taxes, our future.
Because you see, without our taxes, we wouldn't have good roads, good schools, better hospitals, street lights, and other very important social amenities. When we pay our taxes, we give our children free and quality education. Tell God, my money too small. Why should I pay my tax? Look, small. Salifo, it doesn't matter how small or big your business or income is. You still have to pay your taxes. The little taxes from each and every one of us, when put together, could give your community clean water. Or that deprived school with tables and chairs. Please pay your taxes. It is your responsibility. It is your civic duty. It is the law.
Impressive factory. If only I had listened to you, I wouldn't have been in this mess. That devastating fire virtually wiped out the whole factory and my warehouse.
Remember my misfortunes last year? Serene Insurance Asset All Risk Fire policy that I took were there to pay for my damaged stocks in the warehouse, and my machines that were affected by the floods have been replaced. My accident vehicle is back on the road thanks to Serene Insurance Motor Policy. Currently, my goods are on the IC covered with their marine cargo insurance policy. I was just telling Ajima about Serene Insurance.
Oh, Ajima,
tell him more.
As a road contractor, I make sure I do my contractors all risk insurance
for the project and then workers' compensation for all the workers on site. With Serene Insurance, they will make sure they will cover your unknown tomorrow today.
Serene Insurance, a new face of insurance. Call us now.
MPS Terminal 3 is Africa's new state-of-the-art container terminal at Tema Port. For manufacturers, agro-processors and traders, the new port means business can be done faster. This infrastructure boost will improve Ghana's port handling capacity, connect more trading routes, and oil the engine of growth for the economy, creating greater opportunities across all sectors as Africa's markets merge and become the largest trading bloc globally. MPS, we connect, you thrive.
Business and life can be like the sea sometimes. Sometimes serene, sometimes calm, sometimes turbulent, and at times it brings the unexpected. However it is like, trust Phoenix Insurance for your home, car, business, and marine insurance needs. Call 0302-246-319 or 0243-690-492.
At Phoenix, you experience a delightful service delivered with wisdom.
All right, so welcome back. It's now time for us to take a look at happenings in the port and shipping industry in the course of the week. And indeed, in the course of the week, some officials from the Africa Continental Free Trade Area after paid a working visit to the port of Tema. Plus the fact that in the course of the week also, an ultra-luxury cruise vessel also docked in the port of Tema with some 300 plus people. Let's take a look at these stories and more.
Like other signatories, Ghana's commitments to the World Trade Organization's Trade Facilitation Agreement and the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement places some responsibility on the country. The TFA contains provisions for expediting the movement, release, and clearance of goods and sets out measures for effective cooperation between customs and other appropriate authorities on trade facilitation and customs compliance issues. In light of this, a regional after-trade facilitation team has visited the port of Tema to ascertain the level of operational efficiency at the port. At the MPS Terminal 3, the team interacted extensively with management of MPS, who explained efforts being undertaken to make the port of Tema a trade hub in the region and beyond.
What was interesting for them to realize that we are not only providing, capacity, but also we're providing productivity, fast turnaround of vessel, and also predictability. Basically, importers and exporters, they can actually connect on a weekly basis to a specific service or to several services, because we have divided the week into slots, time slots, which we call berthing windows. And on those berthing windows, every week, same time, same slot, one shipping line service comes to it. So basically, if you are shipping to the Far East on a specific service that comes on Monday at 8 a.m., every Monday 8 a.m. actually you can count on it. MPS will berth that ship alongside and your cargo will be loaded.
Basically, when you talk of freight facilitation, it should be targeted towards what we call automation or digitization. And basically, when you look at the activities here, basically all the activity or operational activity that goes on here is being digitized. And that is why you can see that in terms of the issue of trade facilitation has to do with cost and time of doing business. So when you look at the digital operation, it tells you that the time of doing business is something that is very efficient.
In a related development, the Chief Executive Officer of the Meridian Port Services, Mohammed Samara, has encouraged producers and industries within the African continent to take advantage of the benefits and discounts the free continental trade provides. He said the blossoming port sector in Ghana, for example, provides an enabling environment to support industries in the new era of free trade.
Angola all the way to Nouakchott, more or less, we are about 300 to 400 million producers stroke consumer. So this is a huge market. And also, if you look at the GDP, of this block, it's 700 to 800 billion, so that's quite a lot. Nigeria alone, as a market, represent 220 consumers, So if we are growing into becoming, 500 million, for example, consumers within this range and a little bit beyond, because they have to go into the whole continent. If we target 500 million consumers and they do 2 shirts a year, that's 1 billion shirts, to be consumed in this market on annual basis. So that's a lot of cargo, a lot of industry to be built on for, whether it is food and drug, or whether it's a beverage, whether it's clothing, or even home goods and various consumer goods. So the market is really tremendous, huge, and we encourage a lot of people to take advantage actually of the benefits and the discounts that AFTA provide for the industrials that can come and manufacture in West Africa.
The CEO of MPS called for more investment that will complement efforts in the port sector to achieve the goals of the AFTA. Mohammed Samara also revealed that the Phase 2 of the Terminal 3 expansion project will be launched before end of May.
As a matter of fact, hopefully within a week or two, before the end of this month, we will launch the construction of the second phase of MPS port expansion project, and that is a project that will put at least $50 to $60 million worth of investment into the country's infrastructure. And also, we have placed on order additional cranes, that's waterfront capacity as well as yard capacity, to the tune of $75 million. So basically, there is at least $150 million lined up, committed investment, towards the expansion of this port infrastructure.
The Seaburn Surgeon, an ultra-luxury cruise vessel, has visited Ghana for the first time since 2020 when COVID-19 broke out. Indeed, the vessel is the 6th cruise vessel to visit Ghana's ports under 3 months and the 3rd to call the port of Tema within the said period. The 198-meter long and 25-meter wide vessel, operated by Seaburn Cruise Line and sailing under the flag of Bahamas, brought 330 tourists to Ghana as part of a cruise expedition across the Atlantic.
They've started coming since last year, but this year we've seen more ships because COVID is pretty much all gone now. And not only in this destination, but in the other destinations that we operate in, Togo, Benin, Abidjan as well, in Dakar as well. So they're coming back. We expect more of these ships to be here later this year and definitely a lot more next year.
It's about visiting the shops, visiting the malls, the other tourist sites, and I think these are some of the things that we should be encouraging in our country. It's one of the safe ports in this sub-region, and it's a preferred port. So I believe we have a lot of things that people need to come and have such an experience. Now, if you ask all the people on board, the passengers and the crew, they'll tell you that we love to always be in Ghana.
The vessel is expected to continue its voyage to selected ports in the West Africa sub-region on its expedition. It has visited Togo, Benin, the Gambia, among other African countries in the past few weeks.
All right, so those were happenings in the port and shipping industry in the course of the week. Indeed, we are now going for some international port and shipping news.
The South Korean government announced a series of new initiatives planned to further support the domestic shipbuilding industry. This is meant to consolidate the leadership position built over the past 2 years as the industry rebounded, while also recognizing the growing competition and need to develop new technologies. According to the South Korean government, it would be expanding its investment to support the development of new technologies while also increasing the foreign worker programs and providing new financial support programs, all designed to expand South Korea's position in the industry. The announcement of the new programs comes as the shipbuilding industry is under pressure as global orders have slowed since late 2022. A U.S. Coast Guard cutter made a major drug bust in the Gulf of Oman on Monday, seizing more than $30 million of heroin and meth from aboard a fishing vessel. Fast response cutter USC GC Glenn Harris was operating in support of Combined Maritime Forces Combined Task Force 150 in the Gulf of Oman when the crew spotted a suspicious vessel. Upon boarding, they found 580 kilos of methamphetamine and another 35 kilos of heroin. Glenn Harris' crew seized another $48 million worth of drugs in a boarding last October, another $20 million worth of hash and amphetamine in August 2022, and $28 million worth of heroin and meth in 2 busts in May 2022.
And those were some international port and shipping news. We are now going for the word or phrase of the day. And remember, the word or phrase of the day has been fashioned to bring you up to speed with the terminologies and jargons we use in the shipping industry. Now, today's word is shipbroker. Shipbroker.
A shipbroker is a specialist intermediary or negotiator between ship owners and charterers who use ships to transport cargo, or between buyers and sellers of vessels.
All right, so welcome back. We are now zooming into our discussion proper tonight. And tonight we are taking a look at the impact or the expected impact, so to speak, of the Abidjan-Lagos corridor highway. Now, this is a 1,028-kilometer stretch. And Ghana's component of it, we understand, is about 520 kilometers spanning Yamransa, Abuansa, through to Afienya and then Ebri. And so we're told this will cost some $15.6 billion. And the funding is coming from the European Union, and this whole project is under the ECOWAS Commission. Tonight, we're taking a look at this particular project and its expected impact on cross-border trade in Africa. And so we couldn't have gotten a better people to help us digest this topic tonight. And so it gives me pleasure to introduce to us Engineer Rita Ohenisafo, who is the Director of Policy Planning and Budgeting at the Ministry of Roads and Highways, and she's also the Country Project Director for this particular project. Good evening, ma'am, and welcome.
Thank you.
Indeed, we also have in the studios Mr. Ziad Hamwi. He's not a stranger to this particular show. He's the President of Borderless Alliance Ghana. Good evening, sir, and welcome.
Good evening to you and your viewers.
Absolutely. We are glad to have you in the studios. Let me begin with you, Engineer Rita Ohenisafo. I want to find out from you what exactly it is that went into the reasoning of this particular project.
Thank you, and good evening to all viewers. The Abidjan-Lagos Corridor Highway Project is one of the pillars of the EU program for infrastructure development.
Can you draw your microphone a bit closer? Yes.
It's one of the pillars of African Union's program for infrastructure development in Africa, usually called the PIDA.
Okay.
This was born out somewhere in 2013. In Addis Ababa, which identified the Abidjan-Lagos corridor as one of the most viable trade routes. And so they charged the ECOWAS, who also, together with the heads of state of these 5 countries, namely Nigeria, Benin, Togo, Ghana, and Cote d'Ivoire, to sign a treaty in March 2014. Under the treaty, they all agreed to develop the highway as a single project.
Right.
They also then charged ECOWAS to facilitate the project. And then, again, they also instituted a steering committee, which is made up of all the ministers in charge of infrastructure, works, roads in the various countries, together with the commissioner of infrastructure of ECOWAS, to lead in the preparation towards the construction of the road project.
So when in earnest is this particular project supposed to kickstart?
We are hoping that portions of it will start in next year. But in countries like Nigeria, they have already started. Yeah.
Okay, so I understand there have been some stakeholder consultations as well?
Yes, we did.
In Ghana?
In Ghana.
Yes.
You know, Ghana's portion out of the 1,028 kilometers is 576.
Okay, I thought 520, okay.
No, 576 kilometers.
That's quite significant.
Yes, starts from Elubo.
1,028, it means we have more than half of it.
Yes, we have more than half of the entire corridor, making Ghana's role in this project very, very crucial.
Yeah, I think they can. This is it the Nigerian side? These are some of the pictures we got.
Oh, okay.
On the project. Yeah, I think they'll be rolling us as we go along, yes.
So ours starts from Elubo, the border with Cote d'Ivoire.
Cote d'Ivoire, yes.
It crosses all the way. We go through, in fact, a lot of the alignment lies on Virgin, because we do not want to, we did an environmental and social impact assessment. And so there were a lot of criteria used to identify the corridor. When we get to Budumburam, for instance, we are bypassing Accra, going through the Akuapem Hills, where we are hoping that we will construct almost a 3-kilometer tunnel.
Yes.
And then that will then lead us to join the existing N1 not on the existing one, but by it around Mwichu. And then we'll continue, bypass a few settlements, and then we will end up at Akanu.
Okay.
We currently have a joint border post at Akano with Togo.
Okay.
And so that's where the road from Ghana is going to go.
Okay. So when I was reading about it, I like I mentioned in my intro, we have Yamransa, Ebuansa, and then we have Afienya and Ebri. I think what you just described is the Ebri stretch, where you are creating the tunnel.
Yep.
In the Kwiapem area. Okay.
Yes. In fact, the Yamransa part is forms part of it, you know, but I think you're trying to, I'm sure you have read to find out that we have some most viable section,
Absolutely,
which is, of course, that section.
Yes.
The average economic internal rate of return along the entire corridor is about 15.
Yes.
But that section is about 17 making it the most profitable corridor.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that particular aspect, which fortunately lies in Ghana. And so a lot of investors are interested. In fact, they have come to us expressing interest, but we are waiting for the final designs to be completed. And of course, the project to come to the design phase to come to an end. We have a component of restructuring the PPP aspect. And so all of those things will have to be completed before we will know where to go.
Right. Awesome. Let me come to Mr. Hamui, and I just wanted to, you are with the Borderless Alliance, you've traversed the nooks and crannies of the sub-region and the continent at large, and even beyond, and you know what the issues are, because one of the things you do is advocacy in terms of trade facilitation to ensure fluid, passage of goods and persons and all that. I just want to find out from you if you can paint a picture of what the existing state of this particular road is, and what some of the challenges are that you have identified that will perhaps be eliminated once this project is done?
That's a good question. Thank you. And I want first to say that personally, I have driven all the way from Elubo to Semekrake on that stretch of the Abidjan-Lagos corridor. And it's one of the most pleasurable experiences of driving through on these ways. Right. And you can see that there's a lot of potential, whether tourism, whether trade, when we have free movement along this corridor, but we don't have that kind of free movement, actually. What we have seen through the caravan or the fact-finding missions that we have taken in collaboration with various stakeholders and partners in Ghana, we partner with Ghana Shippers Authority on the Ghana portion of the road, but we have taken a mission along the whole length of Abidjan-Lagos corridor in March 2018. Before that, we have conducted a study with WILDAF, with Profab. And then later on, we had the diagnostic study along some of the corridors. And we have interacted with many of the women cross-border traders and the traders in general, especially at the border crossings, where we found most of the significant barriers, which are not tariff barriers. The barriers are more non-tariff in nature, which means that they're not exactly barriers, but they are things like, for example, the non-recognition of the documentation that comes from across the border, even though there is supposedly one harmonized, because we are all under ECOWAS, right? So if you have an ECOWAS generate, let's say, certificate of origin where it is necessary, once you have it coming from Ghana, then automatically you'd assume that going into Cote d'Ivoire, for example, they will take it. Or, for example, under ETLS, if you are registered in one country, along the corridor you are moving. But then before you know it, that you are stopped because you are required for additional documentation, additional tariffs, even though you are entitled to zero duty, zero quota along this corridor for registered products. And so there are frustrations from the trade communities, but also there are frustrations from the ordinary passengers and the movers across these corridors. Because look, a road corridor is not simply the road that you move on. The road is very important. If there's no road in good state to move across, then you wouldn't even use it. But the importance is that where people go, trade goes. And so you have this element of the fluidity of the movement, which is non-existent, and then you have the difficulty of moving across borders.
Right.
And so when people are find difficulties in moving along the corridor, it makes their movement difficult, it makes trade minimal.
Yes.
Now, there's one very particular element that I want to tell you, a particularity actually about the Abidjan-Lagos corridor, about its economic nature. And you know, there are many ways to define a corridor. I will not go into the nomenclature. However, interestingly, people think that the Abidjan-Lagos economic activity is actually commercial activity that goes from Abidjan to Lagos and passing through some of these cities, while actually what we've seen from our observations and interactions, we have come to the conclusion that the majority of the activity that take place along the Abidjan-Lagos corridor is not actually commercial cargo moving along the corridor.
Right.
It's actually groupings of economic activities that take place either at the borders, where cross-border traders will meet in markets and exchange goods, apparels, food products, items, beads, or you name it. And the accumulation and aggregation of all of these activities make up the economic activity that takes place along the Abidjan-Lagos corridor. Keep in mind that Abidjan-Lagos corridor passes through 5 countries, which make up about 88% of the total economic activity of West Africa. Now, I'm not saying that the entirety of each of these countries' economies go through the corridor, obviously, but it makes up a significant section of the entire sub-region. And so this is how you gauge the economic viability of this particular corridor, because it unlocks the potential of trading among this significant subgroup within the ECOWAS. And that is why it is very crucial to have a good infrastructure that connects the main coastal cities across West Africa to ensure fluidity of movement of cargo, but also the fluidity of the movement of people who trade.
Awesome. I just want to find out from you, you listed some of the challenges that we have along that route. If you look at it and look at the completion of this particular project, do you think that we can eliminate some of these challenges?
So I think it will help significantly. However, it will have to be complemented by a focus on the soft infrastructure. If we focus on the hard infrastructure alone, that is the roads, the amenities along these roads, I'm sure engineer will tell us more about that. They have thought, for example, of pit stops, resting areas, safety of the roads, security of the roads, and things like that. So that is very helpful. However, if you don't look at the soft infrastructure aspects, that is, for example, the trade facilitation at the borders, the availability of the services from the border agencies, the mutual recognition of the trade documentation across the countries, and then a clarification or simplification of the trade procedures at these borders. Then you might have the best of highways, but then you get choked at the border crossings, as you know. And then, of course, we have this major issue which used to plague us, which I think there's a potential of eliminating this problem, which is the fact that across most of West Africa, not just across the Abidjan-Lagos, you see that roads pass through major towns and cities across the roads. And so a road crosses through a village, and people cross on that road. And that's a safety hazard. So by relocating significant portions of the Abidjan-Lagos corridor away from the urban areas so that it is focused entirely on the movement of goods of people rather than passing through the cities, you will avoid situations where some of these movements will slow down the movement along the corridor. And then it will also eliminate this gray area between trade and security. And I'll explain. You have this multiplicity of checkpoints in Ghana, let's say, for example. And most of the time, the checkpoints are set up with the, let's say, intention of holding security and checking that documentation and regulations are in order and that there are no firearms, there are no illegal activity taking place along the corridor, which are taking place actually, so we need these checkpoints. However, under this, guys, a lot of other negotiations take place. There are some holdups, there are some discussions that take place sometimes at some of these checkpoints. Illicit fees change hands sometimes. And some of these, and I'm saying gray area because you can't trade without having security, but at the same time, you can't have security without the trade aspects.
Absolutely. Yes.
So when you relocate the movement of goods and people away from the urban areas, you can sort of minimize the risk of some of the activities of the security hazards that take place along these corridors.
Right.
And I think this is one of also of the potential benefits for the Abidjan-Lagos corridor.
Right. Okay, let me come to Madam Ohene Safo and find out from you. It does appear to me from your initial submission that this particular project has been divided and given to the respective countries to deal with. For instance, Ghana, we have our stretch, which you rightly mentioned, 576 kilometers. Are we responsible for it?
No.
Okay.
Under the treaty,
it comes under one package?
Yes.
Okay.
Under the treaty, there was also an intergovernmental agreement that was signed that allows a management authority to be set up by the 5 countries.
Okay.
And that management authority to be hosted by any of the 5 countries will be responsible for the implementation and operation of the corridor. However, the right of way, making the right of way available for that authority to be able to construct the road is the responsibility of member states. And that's what we are doing to sensitize, to let people know about the project, and also to let them know that for areas where we have not already acquired those lands, we'll be coming in to acquire the lands.
Right. You mentioned the 5 states, that's Ghana, Nigeria, Abidjan, Benin, and Togo. All right, absolutely. Great. So can you break down the scope of the works of the project for us?
Just so I can give a clearer picture. We have 3 major objectives for this highway.
Okay.
The first one is to generate, identify, and unlock economic and social potential along the corridor.
Yes.
That is the first thing, which he mentioned. The second one is to promote cross-border trade. Then the third and final one is to integrate the communities along the corridor. And so the road is being used as a catalyst to ensure that we have a holistic development.
Right.
So we have several components under the project. First, we have the feasibility study and detailed engineering design.
Right.
Which at this moment we have given it out to 3 consultants, one working all the way from Abidjan to Apimenim in Ghana. They are a consortium led by what we call SECTEC. It's a French company. And yes, that section is 295 kilometers. The second lot continues from Apimenim and ends at Akano. That's the entire Ghana, and that is 466 kilometers. And that is also being done by a consortium of consultants led by Pearl Consultants. The third one, which is a 320-kilometer stretch, starts from Nuepe, that's the Kano border, all the way to Lagos. And that is done by also a set of a consortium led by a consultant called Set Tunis. So under that, they are supposed to design the road, come out with the documents for bidding purposes, and which we have worked on since 2018. But COVID slowed us down. But fortunately, we should be finishing with the detailed design itself by end of September. And hopefully by the end of the year, we'll be done with the other aspects that calls for the tender and others. We also have a road safety component. And what that road safety component is doing is that, you know, we have 5 countries. Each country has its own standards of design. And so we had to harmonize that standard because we are having one road. This is not a road that is Nigeria, a road for Togo, a road for, it's one road. So we had to come out with one standard for the design of the road. So once we got into the standards and finalized harmonizing it, the road safety consultant audited that standards.
Right.
To make sure that when we use that standards, it's going to give us a seamless road project. Once the consultants design the preliminary designs, the safety consultant takes the designs and audit it.
Right.
And then when they submit the draft final, also the road safety consultant, which is COE, consult from Denmark.
Absolutely.
Will review it before we finalize the design to ensure that the safety aspect is taken care of. We also have the special initiative, development initiative, which is the aspect of it which is looking out to unlock the potentials in terms of agriculture, fishing, tourism, mining, and a whole lot along the corridor in the country. When they finish, they will prioritize this. And that is part of the project.
Okay.
And that feeds into the first objective of identifying, generating, and unlocking that economic and social potential, not just so that the essence of this project is to become beneficial for the development of Africa.
Right.
This road is actually it's called the number 7 highway, African highway, which will connect the road from Kenya. It will connect to the Kenya road, which is the number 8.
Okay.
So this is African Union's decision or objective of making Africa one continent that we can trade among ourselves and even have trade surplus. So it fits into the after and all other things.
Absolutely.
We also have the trade and transit facilitation, and I'm happy he does that.
Yes.
And that is looking to have cross borders with what we call the joint border post, with harmonized ICT systems, where when you are going, for instance, from Ghana, and you get to Elubo, the data taken in Elubo already transmits to Cote d'Ivoire.
Right.
So you just move on.
Absolutely.
It's a means of eliminating the delays that currently occurs. When you get to Aflao, you have to stop, they inspect. You go along the entire corridor, as he says. And Borderless Alliance does a lot of work to inform us about the number of what we call roadblocks. So we can speak to also the security agencies for them to, where the need has to, there's a need for them to alert the people to stop the blockage.
Right.
But this one will not have that kind of blockage. It will have a seamless flow with a connected ICT of immigration, of customs, and that is also an aspect of the project. We also have a component that would restructure, look at structuring this project into PPP.
Right.
The areas, as I said, that investors have already expressed interest on our section, which is 70% EIRR. And so that is also there. Then we have what we call the communication and visibility. That will look into how the whole continent or the whole community member states will look and accept and also know about this. And it will run throughout the entire project. The kind of signage and all forms of information that needs to be carried out.
Right.
And I think it was through the visibility consultant that I sit here today as one of the projects. And then finally, we look at the financial audit of the project.
Okay.
But let me also say that you said it will cost $15.6
billion
at this stage.
Yes.
What the steering committee has been able to do is through ECOWAS, African Development Bank, EU, and each member state. We've been able to raise an amount of $22.7 million US, which we are using to do all these studies, including the consultants. ECOWAS have created a secretariat of experts who are handling these issues.
Okay.
So this is for the design stage and all the studies that are associated with it, not for the works.
Okay. So it's the works that will cost the 15.6 billion?
We are yet to. Once you haven't finished with the design, you will not be able to come out with the cost.
Okay.
We'll definitely tell you how much it will cost.
Okay.
Because once we get there.
All right. Absolutely. So are they all going to start at the same time? Or, I mean, some will start and others may come later. And are you looking at a fixed time where you expect that it should be complete?
This is a decision that we are going to propose to the steering committee for them to. But that is our expectation.
Okay.
That if we can have it, maybe not start at the same time, because some may be more complex than others. But if we can give ourselves a target of 4 years to complete the entire section, I think that would be something that we will propose to the steering committee.
Right.
To consider.
Okay.
Can I come in, Kennedy?
Please, yes.
On 2 points. Madame mentioned 2 topics that are very dear to my heart.
Yes.
I'm passionate about African connectivity, as you know. And Abidjan-Lagos corridor, as you might be aware from what this Madame is going, is not just a standalone corridor. It is indeed marked out as a high priority corridor for several authorities. The European Union have them on their Gateway project. PIDA, NEPAD have them as part of PIDA.
Right.
And the Abidjan-Lagos actually extends even within West Africa, on the western coast of it all the way to Dakar. And then there's an ambitious plan to convert it into a multimodal corridor to connect it to Praia in Cabo Verde, which means that it becomes a multimodal corridor.
Yes.
So there are ongoing discussions of how to feed this into the, but of course the backbone would be the Abidjan-Lagos corridor.
Right.
And then you feed the rest of the region into it in order to make sure that we are connecting Africa to itself.
Absolutely.
And the AFCFTA Secretariat also has marked out Abidjan-Lagos corridor as a priority corridor, apart from the fact that the Secretariat itself is sited in Accra. But because the amount of economic activity that takes place, then it makes a lot of sense to boost intra-African trade by boosting this African connectivity.
Right.
And the second point is the harmonization discussion. And why I think harmonization is important, because I think it's important to, by design, look at aspects such as, for example, the axle weight verification along this corridor.
Right.
You know that we have had several attempts, first of all, to harmonize the various regulations.
Yes.
We have had the new Supplementary Act, which was agreed recently,
Right.
which adds up to the old Supplementary Act of 2012, which was somehow ambiguous to Article 14 of UEMA, and then they harmonized it, but
Right.
now they have fed into it. So, but still, the implementation on axle weights across West Africa has not been harmonious and has not been consistent.
Right.
There has been many false starts, as you know,
Absolutely.
where some countries will start,
Others
and then
will not
others will
implement
say either because the fasting is starting,
Yes.
or because we are not ready,
Yes.
or because our neighbor is not ready, and we
Absolutely.
start. And we are currently at a situation where we are yet to determine when are we going to start with the full and harmonized implementation of
the
axle
axle
weight,
weight,
because of the importance of regulating the weight on our roads and preventing the destruction of the construction efforts on some of these these roads.
Yes.
So Abidjan-Lagos alone will cost us an estimated amount of 15 billion. You really want that 15 billion to last you for the next 20, 30 years. You don't want to look at it in 5 years' time and scratch your head and say, what are we going to do now? Where is the money going to come from? Right? And then lastly, the axle weight also gives way to the discussion about the standardized, simplified trade regime.
Right.
Because we know that in West Africa, let's say we know that in Ghana, we have something called the head loads.
Right.
So
Yes.
if you have an amount of goods under a certain amount, you can cross. But that head load procedure varies from one country to the other. And there is no one simplified trade procedure that is employed across the whole of ECOWAS.
Right.
And I think it's about time, when we are talking about these ambitious and projects with impact, to look at how to design in advance and implement and enforce a simplified trade procedures that allows not only the large and multinationals to cross the borders with ease, but also the smaller the micro SMEs, and then the women cross-border traders to also take a benefit from these infrastructures and to enhance their businesses and to build a vibrant community at the borders, because borders are very important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, so I just wanted to find out from you, I don't know whether I'm running ahead of myself, but I just wanted to find out which industries or sectors are likely to enjoy this particular road the most, to benefit from it the most when it is done.
Well,
do you have any in mind?
I think that the same cargoes that currently move along the corridors, which mind you, as we are speaking, there is no particular value chain that has an opportunity to all of a sudden pop up and start trading across the border because you have better roads. And like we said, traders come from as far as the landlocked countries in order to trade along the Abidjan corridor. The women cross-border traders will group themselves, they will do excursions, they will come to particular markets, either to the Benin market in Cotonou, or they'll come to the Lomé market, or they'll come to somewhere, or they'll move and they'll begin trading. So I will expect more of the current trade in food items, fish is big in trade, and if you open up the movement of people, fish trade along West Africa will become something very big, because fish is not just the tradable item, it's the fisherman who moves along. So they will move along, they will be able to trade, and then people and traders will be able to also move their goods along. Ginger, cola, pepper, apparel, cloth, all of these value chains, which you might think that everybody has the same of this, so why do we need to trade among themselves? But that defies the purpose of value addition, because you have cashew, I have cashew, you have cocoa, I have cocoa, but we have to trade in our value addition, value-added products across the borders. It makes sense. It doesn't make sense to export our resources in raw form so that they get reproduced outside. We have to start to look at how to identify the regional value chains that we can source from across the region, manufacture or add value in a particular country, and then send across in the region. Cosmetics, for example. We have a lot of shea. You can process refined shea in any of the countries along the Abidjan-Lagos corridor, and then you can trade of your products and cosmetics along the road. So there are endless opportunities. However, you have to look at the real impediments, which are, first of all, the business environment, which are needed to unleash the competitiveness of the local manufacturers and producers. And then you have to look at the non-tariff barriers, especially at the borders, that are preventing the movement of these goods with value addition inside. So I think that the road will stir a growth in value-added manufacturing and production. And I hope so also, because there is a lot of potential. And I wonder whether we also spoke about tourism, but there's a huge potential for tourism along the Abidjan-Lagos corridor. People will no longer have to think whether they have to go to London or to Paris or to, I don't know, not even Rwanda or South Africa. If you know that you are in Ghana, in Accra, you can be in Abidjan in 4 hours. You can spend a weekend in Abidjan or in Grand Bassam, which lots of people used to do until very recently when some issues happened. Some people still go, right? Or, for example, for Nigerians to move across the region and to spend their purchasing power along the corridor, or for Ghanaians to move to Togo and Benin and enjoy some of the hospitality of our neighboring countries. Tourism is a huge multiplier effect for economies.
Awesome. All right, let me come to Madam Ohenisafo. I just want to find out from you. You mentioned that feasibility study had been done. There was a design as well. And I just want to find out from you, apart from that, what are some of the things that have been done that concretizes this particular project as a viable one? Because we know that our side of it, instead of 15%, which is the highest, we have the highest of 17% in terms of profitability and viability. Has it been confirmed that the entire stretch or project is viable?
Yes, the feasibility study is a study that identified the economic, the social, the environmental, and other impacts of a project. And that is what came out of with the viability of the projects.
Okay.
And then generally it's around 15% along the corridor, with Ghana being 17%.
Okay.
And then that then transcends into them going ahead with the detailed design.
Right.
So we have concretized that.
Okay. All right. We understand it's a 6-lane.
Yes.
So can you paint a picture of what it will look like compared to what it is currently?
Okay. So this is going to be a highway that will not be interrupted.
Okay.
You cannot enter and exit the highway just the way we do now when somebody drives from his or her house and enters the motorway or enters Tema Flower or anything. No. Before you can enter the motorway, you will have to either go through an entry or an exit. And so there will be what we call the grid separation. Every community will be connected, but not directly. So before you can move onto the road, you will have to go through an authorized channel before you can enter the road. Remember, we are looking to reap the benefits of the road.
Right.
And our COMA, the management authority, will be managing the operations of this road. So you would go through it the same way, and you can exit also the same way. We have a lot of underpasses for animals crossing. Right. We have a lot of underpasses for pedestrian as well. There is no where the community is big, we are going to have an interchange. So we don't have one particular interchange design, depending on the location and the connection to the road.
Right.
The interchanges are different. So that's why I mentioned grid separation.
Yes.
So it is a thorough road that will start from Lagos. We'll have a few fuel stations, other load control stations. Once once you enter the road, there will be an automated ASO station.
Right.
If you go beyond the
load
limit, automatically you will go off the road. We are also looking at tolling.
Right.
And at this stage, we are considering semi-free tolling. So in certain areas, you use a card and just move in.
Okay.
But as the authority comes in, they will be in charge. And of course, once the investors comes in, all of this will come to the fore. So this is going to be a road that you cannot just cross. You will enter, as we see in other countries, highway. This is a proper highway, not a Ghanaian highway where you enter from your house and enter. This will be a very seamless road. Once you start off, it has a speed limit. We have rest stops. We have security areas. We have what we call gas stations along designated areas and all those things. So if you want to go off, you just exit.
Right.
And they will have signs that have both English and French terminology, so that if you're a French driver, you know what to do. If you're an Anglophone driver, you know what to do. So once the designs are complete, we will come again and show them. Now what we have is the alignment, which we have gone around to show to all the 5 regions along the corridor: Volta, Greater Accra, Eastern because of the tunnel, and then Central, and then Western. So once the design is complete, it's a 6-lane dual carriageway, uninterrupted flow.
Absolutely. That's
and
awesome.
Then to add to what Zaid says, we used to have problems with the ASO load control. The UMOA had their Regulation 14, and ECOWAS had a supplementary act. Fortunately, UMOA and ECOWAS have merged, and we are now waiting for a few more countries to sign on to this. Once they sign on, a date will be set for us to now be able to implement. Because we had 2 acts that impeded the implementation of the ASO. But now, when things, the other countries are set, the final one was done quite recently. once all the countries append their signatory to it, we are going to have an extensive asset load control. And we have already started communication with the Ghana Ports and Harbours
Authority.
And they are all in with us that we will control asset load, especially for trucks who have added on extra axles. I mean, those would all be stopped. Because once the law comes into being, and they are the trucks that really destroys our road. So we are hoping that once the date is set, that will be for both ECOWAS and all our Francophone countries. I'm even happy to say that someone from the UEMOA Secretariat is joining us for our meeting tomorrow to look into it as part of our preparations of getting everything together. So this project has really brought the countries, not just the 5 countries, but even the countries in the hinterland, because they are also going to benefit from the trade facilitation aspect and the economic aspect. And so we are working together with our colleagues.
Now, as you go about your engagements and meetings with the heads of state and governments and all that, as far as this project is concerned, you gauge their demeanor. You get what's the level of enthusiasm and commitment from these governments to see to the realization or fruition of this particular project?
I must say it's been very, very supportive. This agreement was signed in 2014, and I think you can tell that in Ghana, we didn't have the current government in power then. But our current minister has been one person who has never missed the meetings. The chair of the steering committee happens to be the Minister for Works and Housing in Nigeria. And we are happy to say that he started this and has been in it and has been very, very influential and committed. He has led together with his team in raising all the funds. Honorable Fashola has also never missed a meeting. And no matter what the countries are, irrespective of whether the minister is removed or the minister leaves, any minister who comes in joins in and embraces the project. And it's been one project that has been very, very successful. I think that we must say kudos to the chairman who has really, really led his team to move this project.
Awesome. Let me come to Mr. Hamui and find out from you, what does this mean for intermodalism? We're talking about intermodal transport. We have rail, we have maritime, that's the sea, we have the air, that's aviation. And now this is a huge road infrastructure project that's coming to complement our quest to allow for the movement of goods and services and trade across the borders. What does this mean for intermodalism?
2 things. The first one is that it will help the port range. And I call it port range because I'm talking about the Abidjan, Tema, Lomé, Cotonou, and Lagos ports in that range. It will make it will force them to automatically start to compete, but to also to collaborate, something called co-opetition. Once they are well connected among themselves, all of the ports will straighten up to the fact that cargo can land anywhere along this range and can go to anywhere else along this range. And this is healthy competition for everybody because it will put the pressures that are required in order to reconsider the tariffs and the charges in the particular countries in order to maintain the competitiveness of these services against each other. Now, I don't want to enter into our own internal discussion on these matters. I've been hearing some issues in Ghana, but when you have now the alternative of moving away from one port to the other, it might come to the advantage of some countries. And so you are automatically forced to reconsider your decisions and to think carefully about how to price your services. So marketing aspects is important. But then my other point is that even though we are developing extensively the Abidjan-Lagos road corridor, I still believe that not all corridor has to go by road across West Africa or Africa. And we still have to complement or to supplement our focus on building good road infrastructure by looking at the framework of our connectivity as ports, especially at the coastal areas. And you'll find out that there has been attempts to build regional shipping organizations, West African based, they are yet to take off. There has been some initiative a while ago that failed. We had a few local shipping companies, African companies, that did not take off well.
Right.
So, but at the same time, we ourselves, or let's say our policymakers, have not been looking holistically at how to promote African short sea shipping or cabotage.
Right.
And you look across Africa, not just West Africa,
Yes.
and you find out that we lack a clear, common African short sea shipping framework.
Right.
And we have to work on this one in two ways. The first one is to muster the political will to connect our ports among themselves and to push the priority of African short sea shipping to the top,
Right.
because it has to be led by the politicians and the policymakers if it was to take off.
Yes.
And the second is to go down to the national level and to look at the policy makers on a national level and to create these slots at the various ports that allows these ports to connect among themselves. Now, you notice that this answer does not directly relate to the fact that we need a functional road infrastructure.
Right.
But if you don't have the alternatives in place, then you will be overusing some of the modes of transportation, and then you'll be underusing others.
Right.
This will lead to more wear and tear in areas, and then to wasted opportunities in others. I think we need to develop our ports, as well as we need to develop our roads.
Yes.
But eventually they will complement each other, because not everything has to move by roads.
Right.
And remember, passengers don't move with ports. You will still need the roads for the free movement of people,
Absolutely.
which is one of the fundamental axioms and principles of the economic community of West African
Also,
states. So
right.
goods should move, but people should move also.
Right. Beautiful. This is Iron Port here on Metropolitan Television, and tonight we are taking a look at the expected impact of the Abidjan-Lagos Corridor Highway project, which is being worked on, and we've given you some of the details about this particular project, which is 1,028 kilometer stretch. Ghana has about 576 kilometers of that road, and a host of other information that you require. And so that's what we are dealing with tonight. With me in the studios is Engineer Rita Ohinisafu, who is the Director for Policy Planning and Budgeting at the Ministry for Roads and Highways. She's also the Country Project Director for this particular project, and indeed Mr. Ziad Hamwi, who is the President of Borderless Alliance Ghana. We're going for a quick break. When we return, we'll continue the show. Please do stay with us.
Every now and again, Goil makes good things happen. This time, Goil has introduced Super XP Ron 95, a higher grade fuel loaded with additives and yet sold at the same price as normal fuel. Goil Super XP Ron 95 enhances engine performance like never before. It maintains the engine by keeping it clean from carbon deposits. Goil Super XP Ron 95 is designed to burn slowly and thus improves fuel economy, making you save money after several kilometers. Goil Super XP Ron 95 gives you a smooth driving experience, that is, less vibrations. Fill up with Goil Super XP Ron 95. Now there's no need to pay more for any higher grade fuel. Goil has that sorted. Goil, good energy.
Electricity, then pay your taxes. Our taxes, our future.
Because you see, without our taxes, we wouldn't have good roads, good schools, better hospitals, street lights, and other very important social amenities. When we pay our taxes, we give our children free and quality education. Talga, my money too small. Why should I pay my tax? Look, small. Salifo, it doesn't matter how small or big your business or income is. You still have to pay your taxes. The little taxes from each and every one of us, when put together, could give your community clean water or that deprived school with tables and chairs. Please pay your taxes. It is your responsibility. It is your civic duty. It is the law.
Impressive factory. If only I had listened to you, I wouldn't have been in this mess. That devastating fire virtually wiped out the whole factory and my warehouse.
Remember my misfortunes last year? Serene Insurance Asset All Risk Fire policy that I took were there to pay for my damaged stocks in the warehouse, and my machines that were affected by the floods have been replaced. My accident vehicle is back on the road thanks to Serene Insurance motor policy. Currently, my goods are on the high seas, covered with their marine cargo insurance policy. I was just telling Ajima about Serene Insurance.
Oh, Ajima,
tell him more.
As a road contractor, I make sure I do my contractors all risk insurance for the projects and then workers' compensation for all the workers on site. With Serene Insurance, they will make sure they will cover your unknown tomorrow today.
Serene Insurance, a new face of insurance. Call us now.
MPS Terminal 3 is Africa's new state-of-the-art container terminal at Tema Port. For manufacturers, agro-processors and traders, the new port means business can be done faster. This infrastructure boost will improve Ghana's port handling capacity, connect more trading routes, and oil the engine of growth for the economy, creating greater opportunities across all sectors as Africa's markets merge and become the largest trading bloc globally. MPS, we connect, you thrive.
Business and life can be like the sea sometimes. Sometimes serene, sometimes calm, sometimes turbulent, and at times it brings the unexpected. However it is like, trust Phoenix Insurance for your home, car, business, and marine insurance needs. Call 0302 246 319 or 0243 690 492.
At Phoenix, you experience a delightful service delivered with wisdom.
Hello and welcome back. This is Ion Port here on Metropolitan Television, and tonight we're discussing the expected impact of the Abidjan-Lagos corridor highway, which is being worked on by some 5 countries within our sub-region. We have Ghana, we have Benin, we have Abidjan, we have Togo, and indeed Nigeria. And we have Engineer Rita Ohenisafo, who is the Director of Policy Planning and Budgeting at the Ministry of Roads and Highways here in Ghana. She's also the Country Project Director for this particular project. And indeed, Mr. Ziad Hamwi is the President of Borderless Alliance Ghana. He's also in the studios, and the two personalities we are having a discussion with tonight. I've been told by the production team that we can activate the phone lines for you to call in and contribute to the discussion. Now, the number to dial is on your screen, 020-552-8353. 020-552-8353. You can call in and contribute to the discussion. Pretty shortly, I shall also be going into the mailbox to bring some of the messages that you've sent in so that we can seek and elicit some responses from you. Now, let me come to Madame Ohenisafo and find out the level of stakeholder engagements. I asked you that earlier, and I saw some pictures of you engaging some people in the central region and other places. So I just want to find out from you whether this is being done across the board in the various countries, and what's the level of, I don't know, enthusiasm by residents or locals of these areas, because once these projects kickstart, it's going to inject some level of economic activity within the area. I mean, have you gauged that level of enthusiasm from indigents, and what's the level of stakeholder engagements you've carried out so far? Are there some to come still?
Yes, I would say that we have successfully had 4 major stakeholder forum. We held one in Accra for the Greater Accra region and the Eastern region. We brought on board the chiefs, who are the custodians of our lands.
Right.
We brought on board the government officials. We brought on board every stakeholder and in the line of the work.
Right.
And we did introduce to them the processes that we went through in selecting the alignment, and then sought their support in the allocation of the right of way.
Right.
Because it's our responsibility as a country to give the right of way to the contractors when they come in. And this is the time we need to start working on that.
Right.
And I must indicate that in all the 4 or 5 regions, the chiefs accepted the project. They were very happy, especially when we introduced the objectives of the project to them and the expected outcome of the project. In fact, they were happy to realize that it was not just a road, but then it's a developmental project, a project that will bring on board other economic, social development, and also improve trade and facilitation. So the chiefs gave us all the support that they need. In fact, they carried with them copies of the alignment so that they can paste them in their palaces and then be able to know which lands to sell and which lands not to sell. So I think it was very, very supportive.
Awesome.
All the regional lands and then the LUSPA people were all supportive of that. And already we have written to the minister, my minister has written to the Minister of Lands to help constitute a national committee in the acquisition of the right of way.
Right.
I think that our...
I think this is one of the stakeholder engagements.
Yes, this was in Cape Coast.
Right, okay.
You can see the Queen Mother there. I don't know, but he came all the way. He told me she came all the way from America.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
She says she lives in America, so she came all the way from America.
Wow.
And she spoke on behalf of the chiefs. When we went to Takrady, we also had the Queen Mother of the Ketan area.
Okay, so you come to that. We have Achu, who has been on the line for a while now. Let's pick Achu, and then we'll come. You continue. I'm enjoying that. Hello, Achu. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Grateful to have you. Please flow.
I came to join the program.
Yes.
And I like what you are discussing. I live in Georgia, which is along the corridor.
Okay.
But what we see here is a bit different from what our engineer is saying. That at the Ghana part of the corridor, the road passes through Georgia town. Because initially we heard that the road was going to pass through the outskirts of the town.
Okay.
But the road passes through Georgia. And the road was constructed recently, but it's currently in a bad state. Part has developed potholes and has not been fixed. From Georgia Township to Akanu border, no street lights on the road. Right now, when you get there, the place is very dark and dangerous. But when you enter Nuefa, which is at the Togo part of the corridor, the road being constructed looks very nice, with street lights in the middle, and it's double lane. But our part is just one lane, and we want to know if this is what they are talking about, or they are coming to
do a new one.
For us.
Okay,
all right. That's what we want to know.
Great. Thank you very much, Achu, who's calling us all the way from Joje. He says they were told that the road was going to be outside the town, in the outskirts, but it passes through there. Sometimes some of the places, no street lights, and so it makes it quite dangerous and all that. Is it what it is?
I think Achu is talking about the existing road, which passes through Joje.
Okay.
This highway is going to bypass Joje.
Okay.
And so we would maintain the existing road as an alternative to the highway.
Right.
But this highway is going to bypass Joje.
Okay.
When we had a sensitization in Joje, in Volta region, the paramount chief of Joje was there.
Right.
And we did indicate all the areas to him. So the existing road which passes through Joje is not the highway.
Right.
The highway will bypass Joje. And I want to assure Achu that we are working with Landmark West Africa.
Right.
They will very soon come there and install street lights up to date.
Awesome. Fantastic.
Join border posts.
Great. Thank you very much indeed. All right. So you were walking us through the stakeholder engagements and some of the things that transpired. We can do that briefly and then come and take some messages. But you can also still call, and the number is on your screen, 020-552-8353. We'll be glad to receive your call and then hear you.
Yes. As I was saying,
yes,
chiefs were all happy about it. And they all lend their support to the project and told us that we can always count on them.
Right.
Except that when we are, of course, taking their land, we should pay them the adequate compensation.
Right.
Which we also told them that we will make sure we do that on behalf of government. In Takoradi, we had the Queen Mother for the Kitan area.
Yes.
We had Nana.
Nana Kwabnanketia, yeah, sure,
In
yes,
fact,
yes.
we invited the chiefs, paramount chiefs in the area, but we had more than.
Wow.
We even invited. We had to bring in extra chairs.
Yes.
They all came with assemblymen, with all the government
Opinion
agencies.
leaders and all that, yeah.
And of course, we always go.
Is that you in the cap and the white
It's me
shirt
in
and
the cap
okay?
talking to the chiefs.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, okay.
once we finish with the stakeholder forum,
Engagement, yes,
they
yes.
want to
More
have
information,
one-on-one,
tete-a-tete, yeah.
and then
Yeah.
also have their own issues
Absolutely,
if they have
addressed,
any,
yeah.
and also to come to me. A lot of them came to me personally to lend their support and to tell me that they just didn't speak at the forum to say that they want to support.
They
this
really
project.
meant it.
And I think they were happy that we came to them.
Right.
Because more often than not, we sit down and when we are ready, we go to them.
Yeah.
But we were happy to know that even whilst the design was going on, we had come to explain the project to them. And I think that is what they expect from all development projects.
Right.
And so we have also created a WhatsApp group where we share information and where if they have issues, they can always reach us and share their issues with us. We have had a very successful stakeholder engagement, and ECOWAS wants us to even share our stakeholder engagements with the team when they arrive.
Yes. Okay. I understand we have Suleiman who is calling us from Accra. Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Yes. Please.
Yes, sir, my question goes to the engineer.
Yes.
Yes, sir. If I may know, were they sociological interaction with the engineers based on the road, the highway that they want to construct? Because if you can get me clear, on the N1H1 road, when constructed, we realized we could not have interaction with our sociologists based on
Have interaction with who?
Our sociologists.
Sociologist.
Yes.
Where do you work, please?
I work in the defense.
Defense?
Yes.
Okay, you are aware that they didn't consult your sociologist. Your sociologist was not consulted on this matter?
Yes, I'm saying this based on what happened after the construction of the highway. You realize kind of people were killed on the road. The highways, the overpasses were not constructed. And then we had a lot of accidents on the highway from, let's say, from Achimota to Malam Junction, that road, where they were not overpassed. If you could remember those days. That, based on that, even on my from Medina Road to Adenta, a lot of people were hit by the vehicles. So I want to know if these people were consulted.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I do remember you made mention there was a road safety, part of the road, and all those things. I think that caters for what he's.
We have done a safety audit, and also we had a sociologist as part of the studies that he's talking about.
Right.
So, and even with the military, in fact, we had last week we went to meet with them.
Yes.
It was a section of our road borders along the section. So we wrote to them and we had a very fruitful discussion with them, and they hosted us very well.
Right.
I think the problem we had on the N1 was that the N1 was a phase 1 of a project that the phase 2 didn't continue.
Okay.
And that's where we had a lot of issues.
Right.
In terms of, there were a lot more interchanges that were supposed to have come as a phase 2 that didn't come, and that had a problem.
Okay.
The other issue is that this road is not going to be constructed within settlements.
Right.
As I said, it will not pass through settlement.
Yes.
Where it does, we will have a great separation,
right,
and you cannot enter directly.
Okay.
Provision has been made for pedestrian to go under or over.
Yes.
And so there will not be any interaction in this regard.
Absolutely. Okay, I think we're going to have to pick our last caller and then come in and do some messages, and then we wrap up. We have barely 6 minutes to go. I understand we have Emmanuel on the line. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, sir.
I would like to contribute to the program.
Please go ahead, sir.
I think it's a good idea, but in a layman's mind, if I had my way from Pram Pram to Winneba Junction, there should be overhead. Do you get me? So that it doesn't cross along with this going to Malang, going to Kwasiman, so that you don't have anything on the ground. You'll be flying all over, all the way to Winneba Junction. That's my contribution.
Right. Thank you very much, Emmanuel, who called us in from Tema. We're grateful to you. He's bringing in some suggestions, and the engineer is here. She'll see whether that is feasible.
Emmanuel, this is to tell you that the road will not even get to Pram Pram. Along Mwicho, we are going to bypass all the way from Accra beyond Bujumbura.
Yeah.
So be rest assured that we are not going to go into that settlement.
Right. At all.
Meanwhile, you can see that we are doing the road as we speak now.
Right.
So the road will end at where it merges onto the new highway.
Awesome.
So that has been thought of, and we are going to make sure that we don't go through the heavily populated settlements.
Okay. This one says, good evening, sir. I am happy for this discussion, please. If I may ask, where will the construction company office be in Ghana? Because, please, I need a job to do. To do. Thanks. My name is Bernard Ayensu. When will it start? Well, he wants to know where the construction office will be. He needs some job.
Bernard, I cannot tell you now because we have not even gone on tender.
Yes.
We have not selected the contractors. We have not finished with the design.
Yes.
Though we are almost done with it. But once the contractors come, we will make it public and let everybody know this is not a Ghana project.
Yes.
This is an ECOWAS project. So everybody it will be open to the entire corridor.
Yes.
To be advertised, and he will get to know.
Okay. I think Achu has called us. He sent this message, so we are not going to take it. I think his concerns have been addressed. I won't take that message. This one says, it's all over the news that it will cost 15 billion, as the host said. Why is it so? When you stated now that it can not be determined until after the design is completed. This one is from Perry in Aplao.
Well, I don't know who gave them the figure.
Yes.
But I am talking from where I sit.
You sit, okay.
I do not have the cost of the project as we speak now.
Okay.
The cost I have is for the studies.
Okay.
And of
that
course,
has been done, which is 20. You said 27 million, 22 million. Okay.
Yes.
So who put that 15.6 billion that we read about? Okay.
I have no
because
idea.
It does appear that all the facts that we saw in the 1,028 kilometers, the 500 and something are all correct, apart from the figure.
Yes, I have no idea where that 15.6 billion came from.
You know something, Kennedy?
Yes.
The figure is not out of proportion because if you divide 15.6 billion, that the alleged 15.6 billion
absolutely.
by 576 kilometers
absolutely,
for 3 lanes in, 3 lanes out, plus services.
I agree.
The number is even manageable.
Yes. I think we still have some messages here to take, but time, we are pressed for time. So we will get them to you and elicit responses, and then in the abridged version, they can get their answers. This one says, I'm happy to hear that Ghana has the largest portion of the road. That means our leaders have a lot of responsibility on their shoulders to see to the successful timely completion of the road. This one from Abigail in Tema. Please announce, okay. Yeah, so I think that basically this one says, how will the ordinary trader benefit from all these heavy projects? My name is Bright in Kumasi. Okay, I think that we'll get some responses for you, but I'll just give you some 1 minute because we have barely 2 minutes to wrap up, to just wrap up.
I want to thank you for this opportunity and to tell the nation that this is a project that is very viable, that will benefit us and our children and children to come. And we need everybody to come on board to support us. Awesome. We all will have to play a role to make sure that this project becomes a reality. And we will be as transparent as we have been. And once we get to know the cost of the project, I'll put it up through my minister, and of course we'll also let them know when the contractors come on board.
Right.
So we want to thank them all very much for their support so far.
All right. Thank you very much indeed, Engineer Rita Ohenisafo. And Mr. Hamui, 1 minute, and then we wrap up.
For us as Borderless Alliance, we think that we complement the hard infrastructure of the Abidjan-Lagos corridor by focusing on the trade facilitation aspects in order to ensure that we facilitate movement and cross-border movement, especially for trade. And that is why Borderless Alliance has been partnering with various institutions, organizations, think tanks, and academia over the years in various areas. Our latest contribution is an essay on gender and trade, on trade facilitation. Right. And in that particular one, we summarize our 10 years of advocacy in West Africa. Right. And among the main challenges which we have is the infrastructure. Right. And so it's timely that we discuss that aspect, project, at least, of this essay here. And the recommendations, obviously, are to collaborate and to involve private sector in that area. Now, I'm mentioning that particular one because I have a copy here for the studio.
Great.
And then after, once we are done, then I will probably glad to present that one. And I look forward to continue to collaborate with Rita and the Ministry of Road and Highways and with Iron 4 to advance trade facilitation across West Africa.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you very much indeed. And that's how we draw the curtain on Iron Port tonight. We say big thanks to Engineer Rita Ohenisafo, who is the Director of Policy Planning and Budgeting at the Ministry of Roads and Highways, and also Country Director for this particular project, and Mr. Ziad Amui, who is President Borderless Alliance Ghana. We thank our sponsors, Ghana Revenue Authority, Goel Company Limited, Serene Insurance, Ghana Link Network Services, Meridian Port Services, and indeed the latest kid on the block, Phoenix Insurance. Remember, the show is powered by the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority. We entreat you to watch the abridged version of the show on Wednesday on GTV at 8:30 p.m. My name is Kennedy Mona. Remember, the show is always powered by the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority. Maximum thanks to executive producers Mrs. Esther Jevidonko and Nana AC Kwanza Sodabek. I'm Kennedy Mona. Wish you a super week ahead and enjoy the rest of our programs. Good evening.